Awesome, man. We're live this episode on the PM interview series. Today we have with us Sarthak. Sarthak, welcome to this episode.
Thank you.
Folks, you know the drill. There are three sections that we generally like to cover in these PM interview series. The first one is to understand a little more about Sarthak's background, why he decided to get into product management, how did he end up getting to PhonePe. The second section is going a little deeper into his PM interview experience at PhonePe. How did he select? He had a bunch of opportunities, as do every other interesting, talented folks out there. So how did he really choose PhonePe? How was his interview prep looking like? And what are those resources that helped him nail that interview? He's going to be sharing that. And the last one is where we understand a little deeper into the reality of a product management role, where Sarthak will share a little more about how his experience so far has been, the day in the life of a PM. Of course, not the details, but also just touching a lot upon the various things that a product manager really does. So with that, kicking this right off, sharing a little bit about Sarthak's background. He's currently an APM at PhonePe, and he's a 2020 engineering graduate. He's previously worked at ZS as a business technology solutions associate, and then later at Coding Blocks as an APM intern. He's given several talks and presentations at public forums, and he served as a judge and mentor at some of these hackathons. So I'm sure this conversation is going to be fantastic. Sarthak, over to
Mhm.
you. Would love to hear a little more about your experience, your educational and professional background, and how did you end up in the product management domain? What excites you about product management?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, Suhas. Thank you so much for having me here. And it's been an honor to be here to give my learnings and experiences to this audience. And so, starting with it, I have been pretty very interested into learning new things every day. So, I was interested in something, learning or reading some blogs or articles, watching some videos, and with that, I started giving into internships and so. Then I got into selected into coding blocks as an APM intern. So basically, it was a journalistic intern, but later it turned out into an APM intern because uh, how the things progressed there. As I was getting more and more responsibilities, I was nailing all the things that are there from the analytics side, operations side, SEO side, engineering, and marketing. So that role grew into this, and that made the first step towards product management. I was not aware of that time, so one of the co-founders, Arnav Gupta. So Arnav suggested that the stuff you are doing is you are doing it very great, and you should not restrict yourself to the marketing or business side or anything like a software developer or coding side. You should explore something like product management. So fast forwarding to today's journey, I'm currently working as an APM at PhonePe, part of P2P Pod, which is peer-to-peer transactions.
That's pretty awesome. I
Mhm.
think PhonePe is probably a dream company for lots of folks. I think this will be a very interesting conversation.
Mhm.
Um, Satak, I think in your case, you had someone who actually told you about this, but for a lot of other folks, today's time might be a little different. But for folks who haven't heard about product management earlier, right? Maybe they're exploring this right out of college, for example. Um, how easy do you think the landscape is to navigate today to get into either a PM internship or an APM role at some of these top startups? What would you say the challenges that you faced or the others are facing, or do you think
Mhm.
okay, it is pretty easy, but you can use my framework?
Okay. So basically, I see today is such a better time than what I was experiencing like a year or 2 year back. There were not a lot of companies who were opening roles for APMs or junior product manager roles or for freshers at least. And there wasn't even much of awareness, as I can say that I was not even aware of that role existed in my college days, uh, in my fresher first year or second year. So a lot of people were not aware that this role actually exists, and this aligns with what they are doing in day to day life, or that aligns with what they're thinking makes it. So I think today is a very great time. A lot of companies have opened up, and the rotational programs that we see on overseas side have also been brought into India. A couple of companies are offering it. Let's say my phone payroll is in rotational product manager program. Flipkart is offering that, and I've seen that couple of other companies is working towards offering that. So that's great. So there could be someone who is a very good designer and transition into a designer PM role. There could be someone who is very good with the BizFin or the growth part of it, they can turn into a growth PM. So everyone who has a very good skill set then can transition into a niche product management side and explore that part. And I also believe somewhere that was that I learned upon that over the period of time, wherever you scale into hierarchy, you try to convert something into a management role. So somebody, let's say, starting from SD1, SD2, will somebody lead to an engineering manager, and somebody something like who is a UX or UI designer would lead something like design manager or something like that. So managerial position comes into the picture any day. So it would be great to have a quick start over there and see things and manage things at how everything works.
Interesting, interesting,
Mhm.
interesting. Um, Satik, jumping right in now. Um, how did you discover or finalize upon PhonePe? How did that process look back? Go back to that time where you were like, hey, okay, I want to now get into a bunch of these interesting startups in the
Mhm.
product space. You would have started maybe shortlisting companies and started applying. Then you would have got interview calls and then you would have closed some, right? So walk us through how that process looked like. If you could even share some that you had finally nailed down upon, and then how did you choose PhonePe to be that destination that you would love to get into as an APM? So walk us through that. That would be awesome.
Okay, so the journey starts, I would say, 6 months back into where I was as a DS employee. And then I was thinking like I have been working great as an APM intern, and I wanted to explore more on that part. And it would be good to continue on that part and instead on the current position. So I contacted again the my senior at that time was Raghu Bhaiya, and I asked like what should be the right way, what should I do right now, because I have somewhere transition into the consulting space and the service-based companies, and how can I transition back into the product space with a as a product manager. So one of the things that I got from him was that nobody is looking for a good product manager at a service-based company. So you should first try to transition yourself into a product-based firm, because if you are doing good at a product-based firm, you are working at a core product, there would be a very good chances that you will transition into PM side. So the first priority should be transitioning into a product space, and then you can maybe move into product management space if that's available. So I would say the people don't handle rejections well, but I have got a plentiful of rejections on my side as well from different teams. But they were all turned out to be a learning in disguise. Every interview that I gave, every shortlisting, every call that I had was something that I was not able to discover earlier, but now I able to understand and how I can process these things. So 6 months back, there was a few openings that came onto my LinkedIn and my Angel list, and the third was InstaHire. So these three platform I keep on looking day-to-day basis, and there were some listings from Dunzo or from Swiggy and other companies. I applied through them. My resume got shortlisted. I tried for roles, interviewed, and maybe got the rejection in the final stage or the penultimate stage. And there were some companies where I applied for the product analytics role instead of a PM role, just because I wanted to switch into the product side, and that could be one way that would make the transition easier for me. So I tried doing that as well. So I applied for product analytics role, and those interviews were also eye-opening, because I know for a fact that if you are a good PM, you should have a keen eye towards data and how data works. And so while working for analytics interviews, I also gained that insight, and that helped me a lot in my further PM interviews as well. Uh, Finally, the day came, and I think uh, I applied to Urban Company. I got shortlisted there for this position. Then I applied for a company at Noise, which was a startup in the hardware product space, where I got a PPM position. And then third was this PhonePe. But among discussion with my peers, families, and seniors, I got to decide like PhonePe is the right place to move forward with the career path.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Mhm.
Quantitatively, how many do you think you might have applied at? How many did you get a shortlist at? And of course, three offers, three great offers that you chose
Mhm.
one out of five. How do you say that funnel looks like approximately?
So interestingly for me, so for most of the folks, that funnel might look different. For me, the resume shortlisting was very high. So there was a high probability, because I have worked way much on my resume, how to make it better and how to contain all that information that might be relevant for the people. So I was getting a very high funnel rate for the whenever I apply for the position, I at least got a call from different companies. So I was able to get a call from, let's say, big folks from Sprinkler, Expedia, and all the different companies. And I was able to get my resume shortlisted. I was able to get referral from the key folks out there. And interesting part on that. So unknowingly I tried to message a lot of folks for referral on LinkedIn, and that cold messages turned out to be great. So because of that, I was able to get referral at every position. I even applied to that rotational programs at Twitter, Google, Facebook, and whatever you can assume. But I so the person that I was applying, like mostly 90% of them said that pandemic has been going on and you are at India and you are not like say international degree or international uh, experience, there might be high chances you will be getting rejected for that. But instead of that, I was asking like, if you can refer me, that would be great for me, because getting a chance to interview at that company would be a great learning opportunity for me as well, because I
Right.
can move forward in that direction. So that was the scenario. And unknowingly, after these cold referrals, I got a referral from the chief product officer at PhonePe. At that time, I was not aware that I have sent the message to him. It was just a process that I was following to send a connection request, and as soon as I get accepted, I will send the mail. And that has been the good part for me. And the funnel then transitioned into at least one round of interview, and then a rejection kind of thing. So mostly resume shortlisting has been done, and I would say the funnel was then quite steep.
Beautiful, dude. Like amazing to hear about that. I think what we will also request you to do is maybe share those learnings on a small doc, and we'll add it to the description. This will go out on YouTube as
Mhm.
a small part. But we'd love to share, those tips and tricks that helped you. Some that you might be able to cover on today's podcast, but I'm sure that's a lots of learnings that you've had. And
Mhm.
anything that you're willing to share in terms of resume tips, or the cold reach out tips or templates that you'd love to share, we'd love to include that in the description.
Sure.
But thanks for sharing that, Sarthak. I think jumping
Mhm.
right into the meat of today's conversation is
Mhm.
about, okay, hey, now you've broken into a dream company, but how does that process look like, right? How many rounds did you have? What are these
Mhm.
rounds like? And any tips and tricks and resources that might help folks listening to this pod to prepare for those interview rounds at PhonePe?
Sure. So basically, as I said, so I was moving in the consulting space, and then I transitioned to product management. But since there was a, like, I would say 6 or 7 months of gap, I was not up to date with how things work at the product side, and I was losing some catch of it. And also, my internship was something at a startup experience, so I have to be well prepared for some where I was applying for companies like big folks, and I have to be well prepared for these things, right? So the main idea was to grab as much as knowledge I can, but not to wait for it. So people generally, for me, as I see that people tend to make that mistake, that let's prepare for 6 months and then I will start applying. For me, this was an ongoing learning process. I started applying because I know for a fact that any day, so let's say I apply for today, I will not get a call as soon as tomorrow morning, and I will be seeing myself as unprepared, and I will fail that interview. So I kept on applying. Let's say I will get a call, let's say a 2 week ago, 2 weeks later, or 4 weeks later, but I will be prepared at that time with some of the knowledge that I can do on my side. So those two things go parallelly for me: the interview processes and the learnings. The application process and the learning from different blogs, YouTube videos, and and I think I gained a lot of these learnings directly via the interviews itself. So whenever I got a shortlisted for interview, they asked me some product question. I was thinking on the feet, and I was like churning my brains out for that question, like how to solve that question in that way. So I was not aware, not able to understand the question if that's the case, or how to think it in as a PM style, right? That was the main criteria at that point. A lot of these questions were turned out to be a learning for whatever decisions I take today. Let's say if there was a interview where somebody asked me like why search pricing is involved in Uber. There was an interview where somebody asked like let's say Flipkart daily order has been decreased in 2 states. What could be the possible reasons? Can you like do an RC on that? So these were the interviews that made my brains work out. And secondly, for my learning specifically, where I go to, so there has been a daily activity I was doing, like walking into park for the like health fitness part. So what I do is I put in my earphones. I would go either to the podcast. So there is a 5 minute podcast or PM podcast available. I would go there, or either there is a YouTube channel called Exponent where they have mock interviews for product folks. That prepared me how to answer into interview, how to explain yourself, how to show what you have got in the best way possible, so that they understand you are the right person for that. And on the same way, if that is something I'm missing, let's say today not is the right time for mock interviews, I would listen some 5 minute podcast or 10 minute podcast that would go hand in hand.
No, that's
Hmm.
awesome. That's probably something that we're trying to do even with this series, right? So
Hmm.
we already have like a mock interview series that's going on, and
Hmm.
parallelly we've just started season 2 of this PM interview series, exactly like what we're doing
Hmm.
right now, where you hear journeys of other early stage product managers who just broken in to share more
Right.
tactical stuff. So no, thanks for sharing that. Sarthak, any of these particular rounds that you'd be willing to is there any particular books, any particular resources that can help them with, say, case study rounds, guesstimate rounds, RCA rounds, product design, product strategy rounds? Anything in specific that helped you, or is it just these videos? How did your practice time look like?
So learning by practice has been my motto for a long time. So I have not a, I would say not a good reader in the say, let's say have a book and read it through. But I have been referred a good number of books from other folks, but I was not able to pick that up. Like there has been something that's been keeping me there, but a good number of articles that I was able to do. Like, let's say I made a practice that at least 2 articles every day I would read. Anything about product. It could be something like a product launch, it could be something like a product decision. Let's say why some company take some decision, how they pivoted, how they made this theory, how they solved this problem. Or it could be something like just a product management depth article about some of the tactics. So let's say there is a concept called MIFI, there is a concept called let's say how to actually analyze the conversion rates, or what metrics look better in what kind of area, how to decide your North Star metric. I would try to at least read 2 articles every day. It could be something like one in morning, one in evening. As just browsing in my midday meal kind time, so I read an article because you might not have that capacity or patience or that stamina to read through a whole book, but you can go through an article in a very quick span of time. And also, they try to focus on one special topic, so they try to cover it in whole. So I would not recommend like these are the perfect tricks, but this is one of the way. Secondly, for reaching out folks, there would be LinkedIn for me. I would ask for like what could be any tips if you can share, if you can refer me, if you have any opening in your mind. Or second was the position where I would go is Reddit. So there is a subreddit for product managers. It has not been active, but I can at least go there for see sample resumes, people talking about what are the different rejections they have faced, what was the turning point from them. Like reading their stories were giving insight to me as well. If I go back to the PhonePe round, so there were at least four PhonePe rounds, and one was just by whenever I applying, there was this case study round. There we got an assignment to do. If I have to say, like it was an RCA kind of assignment. I was given a situation and I was asked to solve it. I was told like I have to explain all the nuances and the possibilities that could be into that assignment. After that I've got 3 face-to-face interviews. So first was mostly like I would say partially around the assignment, what I've solved, what was my thinking, how I came to that solution, or and it was around one of the product solving questions. So there was a problem, then I have to solve it. Let's say it could be something in any other case, it could be something like um, this is a problem that this company is facing, how to solve that problem, right? This is to understand how I view users, how I view other stakeholders, how I can understand if the problem that they have mentioned is correct problem or there is any other underlying problem related to that. So that was the first round. Second round was mostly around uh, what is the like I think that has been a most basic question at every interview. Is it like you would say your favorite product or something like that? But
Yeah.
it goes way beyond that. So whatever app or whatever product that you say, it will go way beyond that. Have you ever thought about these metrics? Have you ever thought about these scenarios? Why this product is shaped in such a way? What are the possible competitors? What would be a 5-year timeline for them? Like as a PM, if you are working for that product, what would be a 5-year timeline for that product? How you want to involve that product into something, right? So these are some of the questions that were deeper in the sense. It could be something around what are your design thinking, if the solution they have implemented is correct, or if you have any other ideas that could improve that product in a better way, and something around the thinking questions. So there was a quick thinking questions. If you are a product manager for this company, what would you do? If you're a product manager for this company, what would you do? Something like that. And there was a third, I would say, so company have last round as cultural fit or company fit round, but it was something like a product fit round. So it was around with chief product officer, and there was I would say a very great discussion I had with the chief product officer about a product, and if you are a product manager, how you think about a product that was discussed. So I was not even aware at that time that whatever answers I'm giving were in essence saying that whatever I think about a product, whatever I follow as a routine to think about a product was there. This was a, I would say, interview process looked like for me.
Nice, nice, nice. That's awesome. In
Mhm,
fact, we hosted CPF Mintra earlier on one of our conferences, so I think that would have been a very, very interesting discussion you all would have had.
mhm,
Um, Karthik, jumping into now the next section, I would love to understand how has your role as a product manager really been, right? You've been as an APM for quite some time now.
mhm,
And you mentioned you are currently as part of the rotational program in Mintra. So,
mhm.
what does a RPM program at Mintra look like, or what does the role of Sarthak as an APM at Mintra really look like? Of course, no details about the working details on the project, but how does your day in the life of a product guy at Mintra look like?
Yeah. So basically, uh, this is the first batch at APM at PhonePe, and is it it's we have around 14, 15 folks at APM, and out of them 12 were hired by the hiring process, and like two were internal switches. So uh, this is the first time that even companies exploring how the program should look like. They are also defining things it would be better for them, and this is the first time that the there has been an would say junior product manager role at PhonePe. So a lot of things are evolving on the go, but how this have panned like so they have decided into two sections. So there is APM one and there is APM two. They are all clubbed together. The only difference is that um, APM one is a person who would be having a 2 year rotational program. They will at least move from one pod to another in those 2 years. They will like at least have two pods during their practice. And for APM two, it would be mostly like they have been coming from a product background. They have a good enough experience in the product side, so it would be a one pod, but it would be uh, it would analyze like if possible they might transition to another pod, but at least one pod will be there as part of this program. And uh, what I am part of is like a P2P pod. So P2P is a peer-to-peer transaction pod. And what we try to do is like how to optimize things for users not sending money from one user to another user. So out of the majority of the transactions are P2P type of transactions. So anyway, not every user is going at a shop and scanning the QR code or sending via at a place. But most of the transaction is something like I'm sending money to my friend, I'm sending money to my relative, I'm sending money to parents, my brother is sending money to me. So these kind of transactions all come into P2P, right? So this is what the core idea of my pod. As an APM, the hierarchy we follow is that the company is broken into smaller pods so that they have a clear focus area. So something like investment could be a investment is a pod. There is something like insurance is a pod. There is something like merchants as a service is a pod. So basically, different sections that are part of the platform are part of a pod. Every pod has their own uh, various mechanics, like how they want to move ahead in the year, what are their key launches could be, key features going to be part of this year's growth, and every pod has their own stage. So some pod are into their 0 to 1 stage, some pod are into 1 to 10 stage, some pod are mature enough that so they are into 10 to 100 stage. So they have a good user grasp, but they are evolving their offerings. They are adding new things to that portfolio. Above an APM, there exists a product manager or a senior product manager, and then above that is a product director. There could be one or two pod under a product director, but only one senior product manager is handling one pod. Then above product directors, we have chief product officer. So this has been the hierarchy as of now, and we follow a very good culture, I would say. So it's a mix of startup plus MNC. So since the PhonePe is at a level where we have evolved as a good startup, but we are transitioning into something which is a more, I would say, a more like a big company. We have around like 2.5 like 2.5K folks working. So since if you are working at this great growth, you have to have a matured space as well. So we are transitioning something from a flat hierarchy to a hierarchical structure, and we are also defining things on the go. And there are different things that are part of a pod. So basically, something like a design counterpart, developer counterpart, tester, BizFin guy, marketing guy. So these are all clubbed into one space, which is a pod. This is how the hierarchy of the system works at home.
Nice. No, thank you so much for walking us through that. Um,
Mhm.
One question there, if someone looking to apply now to PhonePe, what is that one or two things you'd love to tell them that they should definitely keep in mind while they are trying to, get into their role at PhonePe? Is there something that is outside of, the traditional books and blogs that you'd love to suggest to them?
Okay. So uh, my idea would be something where I will speak more about generalistic thing, and then I can transition what would be helpful if you are trying to apply for PhonePe. So if you are just looking for an APM role or junior product manager role, I would highly prioritize to think of product manager at your day-to-day things. So let's say if you are working at a company, but there would be some certain activities that are out of your employment scope. You have to think of these things. So let's say you are trying some app. Just think of it a PM perspective. What if you are a PM of that product or that company? What would you do? How would you optimize that feature? Um, Casually sitting in a place, so let's say thinking about how many users daily use Google Maps, or what would be an average use cases for Google Maps as a product, right? That could be one thing. So for me, this was the key area. So wherever I talk about some friend, I try to mimic a conversation. Like if I'm a product manager, what would be your feedback? What could I improve? What was the thing that you like the most? What users are doing there? So this has been my daily habit that evolved. So whenever I talk to my friends, I casually ask what are the new products that they are using today, and whatever new feature they are liking, what is the new thing. For that, I also try to explore more on the product hunt. So this is a place where new products come into scope. So I casually try if some product is looking good on the premise part, at least I try to give it a thought. I give try to give it a look. So that was one thing that I tried to do. Secondly, if you are looking specifically for product roles at PhonePe, I would say uh, be yourself. You don't have to have anything specific. So if you are coming from a very strong technical background, or if you're coming from very strong, I would say managerial background, that won't make a sense. Like you don't have to have that kind of skill set. You just have to be a good product guy to be at PhonePe. It doesn't matter what kind of background you are coming from. Let's say it's not mandatory that you're an MBA graduate, or it's not mandatory that you have done a lot of product experience. If I can say, um, it's not mandatory if you are coming from even IITs or NITs. You can be from any college, I would say. So uh, don't overthink over the question that I am not eligible. You are eligible, just you have to prove that you are the right candidate for the part. So as a product guy, I would say uh, think of a way that you have more responsibility, you have more end-to-end ownership of that product. If you can express that feeling, that uh, so I would say most trivial thing what people do is that they go to a senior and managers and show them this is a problem, but they generally don't uh, think of a solution while approaching to the problem. So if I, let's say, go to my manager and say that this is a problem, but this is one or two solutions that I have also thought on the way. So it will help the manager to think of a higher, yes, yes, this is something that we can work upon. This is something you have saved my time as well, and it shows that you have put your effort. So I would say think of solutions that could be helpful. Think of different ways that this could be implemented. So it could be something like a small, how YouTube Shorts can grow into something like Instagram Reels. Think of it in that way, evolve into that direction. That would be helpful if you can explore these things. It would be helpful if you can grow these kind of scenarios in your mind. And I think it would be good to go for all the interviews.
I think these are two very, very practical things for people to work on, right? Whether you're
Mhm.
currently applying or not. These are just skill sets that people, I think, should definitely start evolving into.
Mhm.
Even if you're going to say apply 6 months from now, right? You'll be that much stronger when you're closer to that date. I think these
Correct.
are just two skills you can keep doing. And this just improves on your product sense, whether you're going to be a founder tomorrow, whether you're going to be product marketing, even if you're in any adjacent skill set, any
Mhm.
adjacent role, I think the skill set is very, very useful. And I think you shared two very practical ways to do that. So
Right.
that was interesting, Sarthak. Coming to one of, I mean, I think this is like kicking off the last section of today's pod.
Mhm.
Um, Sarthak, what do you think? I think you touched upon this in your last answer that,
Mhm.
hey, you don't have to really come from XYZ background. But do you think knowing a particular SME, like subject matter. For example, PhonePe is in the
Mhm.
fintech domain. Do you think you had to like study like that bit a little more, or when you were applying to say Dunzo, you had to learn a little bit more about hyperlocal and e-commerce, or do you think the interview process doesn't really judge for that today?
So what I would say is it highly depends on company to company. What company is exactly looking for? If they are looking for a, I would say, a senior person, they might they might prefer someone with a good experience in their domain. So somebody who is in fintech would hire somebody who has a fintech experience. That would be a priority. But at least if you are looking for a junior product roles or junior position or fresher positions, I think experience might not matter. Or I would say the uh, the expertise in that segment might not be that relevant. It would be a good to have, but not a must to have for me. So what I have seen that the among other peers that have been like the other APMs at PhonePe, I am the one who is coming from non-IIT background. The most of the from are from IITs or IIMs from their background. So this is one of the learnings that I have got. Secondly, a couple of them are from IIMs and they have MBA degrees, but not all of them. So it does not make sense that uh, you can only break into product management only if you have that MBA degree. So uh, for the folks that who are restricting themselves, let's do MBA first and then we can break into product management. I want to break that myth. Yeah, I think MBA opens a lot of opportunities. If you have a product experience, it also opens a lot of opportunities for you, but it does not way any way restrict you that you cannot be some guy. I would say again, repeating the same part. So if you have expertise, it opens up a lot of opportunities. It makes you more preferable, but it does not anyway restrict you for that part. As I say, PhonePe is a fintech company, but I was coming from which is more into pharmaceutical and healthcare sector. The ZS was more focused towards that. So in any way, I was not the perfect guy, but still I make it there, right? So this is the learning that most of the folks that they restrict themselves that I am not eligible or I am not the right candidate. I have not the relevant experience in that way. I would say apply. What's the worst could you have? Like they would reject you, but anyway, if you're sitting ideal, that's as equivalent as a rejection, right? But what if you get shortlisted? That would be a life-changing moment for you. So that has been for PhonePe for me as well. So I applied. Um, on the job description, it mentioned something like at that point of time, I think it was something mistaken. I don't know. I'm not sure. But they like candidate from MBA. This was something written on the job description. But in any way, I applied. I asked for referrals because I think if company can give you a chance, they can see you in person. They can analyze you with their interviews. They can totally hire you irrespective of your educational background, irrespective of your percentages. So company doesn't focus much on them. Company focus on what your current skill set are, how you can bring your goodness to the company and how you can grow mutually with the company, right?
Awesome. Love that hustle, Sarthak. And I think for
Mhm.
our audience, I think just listening to your story will be an inspiration. So thank you so much for sharing that. What would be the best way for folks to reach out to you if in case they would you be active on LinkedIn, Slack, or Twitter, Gmail? What would be the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, for me, I would say if you have a social media platform, I have might be there. It would be something like I might have installed it just to try it, but I am on there. Like if you are on Discord, Telegram, Signal, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, or Twitter, I am on there. You can reach out me anyplace. If I have to say, I am more active on LinkedIn because that's the one way where I also reach out to most of the folks and I can get a sense of it. And secondly, I have my own portfolio website where you can go and fill a form submission that I want to talk about this. I can reach out to you. I can schedule some time with you. That would be another way.
Awesome. We'll do one thing. We'll add a link to your website as well in the description. So folks who want to
Hmm.
reach out, in case you're looking at PhonePe or you're looking to break into product without a tier one MBA background or a BTech background, I think Sarthak would be an amazing person to chat with, and he's always ready to help.
Yeah.
So Sarthak, I think with that we come to the end of this particular episode, but we got some amazing insights from you, and looking forward to that, Doc. I think we'll definitely reach out to you for some tips and tricks on resumes and how to get better conversions, or
Mhm.
how your experience has been. If there's anything that you'd love to share with our audience, I think we'd love to include that in the description below. So folks do watch out. And with that, thank you so much, Sarthak. The last couple of minutes have been a very, very interesting conversation. And we'll definitely look forward to you following your journey at PhonePe and otherwise too. But thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sohaj, for this opportunity. And this podcast has been phenomenal for me as well.